Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thank you ever so much for coming. We'll just kick straight off. So this is the Finance and General Purposes Committee on the 24th of August. Apologies for absence. So the ones I have in front of me are Councillor Williams, that's Charlie Williams, Councillor Gibbons and Councillor Skeen. And I think everybody else is here. What I've worked out. Excellent. Declarations of interest. Are there any from anybody? No. So what we'll do is we'll go through the minutes, and then I'm going to suggest, if the committee's okay, we move the bid forward, so you don't have to stay the whole meeting down. So the item 3, the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of July 2026. Just checking there's no inaccuracies or corrections that need to be made. In that case, could I have a proposer, Councillor Crewe, and a seconder, Councillor Stanfield? All those in favour of the accuracy of those? Thank you, that's carried. And then we'll just do the draft note to the D-vote group, and then we'll move the agenda forward, I think. So you'll see the draft notes from the start finish group of the devolution working group. Sorry, I butchered that, but you know what it is. On the 5th of August, is for only noting. These are meeting quite frequently now, actually, because there's a lot of chat about devolution. So if you've got any questions about any of that, you let us know. But the key big thing to know that's coming up is, assuming we go in the timetable we think, at September's full council, there will need to be a decision on one of the grounds maintenance Glendale contract, because we always committed to give North Somerset at least 6 months. So that's just a heads up of there's probably a big debate coming on that one. No clarity, anything on that? No. Committee's happy. I would like to move the bid renewal, which is agenda item 9, up to now, if that's okay, because Darren's got a presentation to do. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Cool. In that case, we'll move agenda item 9 forwards. And Darren, if you want to kick us off with the presentation, or unless officers want to give any context, I can do the world's quickest context, which is we're within the bid district area. We've got to make a decision whether to vote. That's been held in October. Some of our assets are in the area, but we don't pay the national non-domestic rates. Therefore, the people who are tenanting that will be the ones who vote. For us, it will be the museum and here, Waterloo Street. So Darren's going to take us through all of that.
Thank you, Chairman. So, yeah, as explained, we're coming to the end of the 3rd bid term, 31st of March 27. Apologies for some of you that have already had this presentation, and then Councillor Crewe, thanks to Councillor, so I'll try to whisper it and I'm familiar with it. Bids can run for a maximum term of 5 years. So at the moment, that's what we're hoping to go to reballot in October this year for an additional 5-year period. Just to run through a few of the achievements that we've had in the last term. So our street warden service responds to about 3,000 calls per year. They operate on a 7-day-a-week basis from 8 till 6. And also we operate with 2 evening wardens on a Friday, Saturday night in town from 7 PM until midnight. We've got 150 plus current radio users subscribed to our StoreNet system. For those that don't understand, that's a system that gives direct access both to our street wardens and to CCTV. So shops purchase a radio or hire a radio from us, and it gives them that ability to ask for help. It also gives them access to what we call a DIS system, which is a system that sits online and allows them to report incidents. It builds a gallery of the problematic people that we've got and allows us to share that with our working partners. Delivery of events. I just listed a few on there. Eat festivals with about 3,000 visitors at each event. The Armed Forces event, which I'm sure you're all aware of, that continues to grow. This year grew again. The Christmas lights switch on, which again last year saw about 2,000 people turn up. We've got a number of floral displays and hanging baskets around the town in partnership with yourselves, the Town Council. This year, or the previous year, we've awarded a number of business improvement grants to businesses that have allowed them to make changes to the front, basically aesthetically. We've allowed them to buy new shutters, new signage, a till system for another one. And our role really is to represent the business interests in the town. Just very quickly, the way that the ballot works, it's a minimum 28-day postal ballot, which will go out on the 22nd of September this year. It's a very straightforward vote yes or vote no. We need a majority vote in favour, over 50%. If it goes through, then all businesses within the levy pay, but we need 50% of those businesses to vote yes. And as I said, the ballot date, it closes on the 22nd of October. So it runs from the 22nd of September to the 22nd of October. Bid 4. So 3 key themes that we're working on. The most important one would be the safety, security and streetscape, but then also events and business support. We haven't made any recommendation to change the boundary that we currently have at bid 3. One of the things that we have done, there's been a threshold for the last term. So businesses with a rateable value of less than £7,500 don't pay into bid. There's a lot of the smaller businesses that are really struggling to meet that, and therefore the decision's been made this year to raise that to £10,000. So that loses another 150 businesses in total off the list, but doesn't actually have any massive impact on the financial contribution that comes in. We've also, since the start of the first term, the bid levy's always been 1.5%. So basically it's calculated on 1.5% of the business rates that the business pays. We can't continue to keep it that low, unfortunately, and therefore the board has decided to raise it to 1.75 this year. It doesn't have a major impact on the businesses, but it does bring in about an extra £50,000–£60,000 a year, which is required to keep bid operational. And as I said just now, by raising the threshold to £10,000, it reduces it from just short of 400 businesses down to 350 this year. So we went out to consultation in early February with a survey and got some interesting responses back. And then we've been out again with a main consultation survey in June 26, which went to every premise within the bid area. We had 40% engagement across the survey. It was very slow to begin with, and it did take a few visits, a few phone calls, but we finally managed to get the businesses to actually fill the survey out, of which 87% agreed with the vision, which is the 3 points that I've just been through. They all agreed basically that the security wardens is the highest essential project. 2/3 of the respondents were very satisfied or satisfied with its performance previously. 21% not satisfied or dissatisfied, and 12% neutral. 67% of that 40% that engaged said they would vote yes in the next ballot. It's important just to note that that information is only based on the consultation reports. So when we talked about the projects that we'd like to continue with or deliver, we had over 80% of these thinking that these were essential or important to continue to support. So the employment of the bid-funded security wardens, street wardens, to continue to support owners and tenants with grants for premises improvements, lobbying on the things that matter to businesses, the provision maintenance of watering of town centre floor displays and hanging baskets. Obviously, some of these we do in partnership with other existing bodies such as yourselves. Continue to support events, street entertainment, art, Christmas and sporting events, and support other organisations running events in Weston. So there tended to be some response around that rather than us putting the events on, they wanted to see us begin to support other event organisers and help them. Campaigns and business-to-business promotions, working with the nighttime economy through pub watch meetings. And currently, I think it's fair to say that the relationship between bid and the nighttime economy has been strained. It's something that does need some improvement, but there was a desire in the survey for that improvement to take place. And then to continue working collaboratively with the Western Place Agency and North Somerset's Economic Development Team for the future delivery of the High Street. For consideration following the consultation, these were things that were suggested that we continue to think about doing as well. So to develop and introduce an evening economy safety plan, coordinated programme of new events to drive footfall, more focused and strategic promotion of businesses, better communication from the bid team, access to 200 interactive training courses. So there's an online course called an online tool called Seedle, which has been very successful across the country with other bids. which allows a lot of the businesses to train their staff in first aid and a lot of other issues without having to pay for it. So it would be provided by bid. So it would save the businesses money, but allow them to deal with the legalities of running a business. And then reducing the cost for businesses, which again was one of the major factors in bid in the first place. So working in partnership with local waste collection services or utilities to drive better deals for businesses by getting more businesses to sign up to them. The council interaction, so this is just a bit of legality for you to understand there. So the ballot is organised by North Somerset Council. The ballot day, as I've said, the final day, 22nd of October. So this one related to North Somerset with over 20 premises, but you've actually got 2 within the bid area at the moment now, as the chairman mentioned. And then the collection and transfer of income, levy income, which also sits with North Somerset, and then to work in partnership to add statutory baselines. So in relation to the business plan there has to be baselines in partnership with North Somerset around highways, the green team, waste management, and a number of other statutory baselines that have to be agreed as well. So the timetable that we're currently working to, we have formally requested already that North Somerset run the ballot, and that's been agreed by them. The business plan, I believe, has arrived up in my office today, so that will go out for distribution over the next few days. There's going to be a postal copy to every business, but we're also going to hand deliver to make sure that they get them, because some businesses, their head offices deal with it, others are done by local. So the best way is to make sure that we tick all the boxes. We'll send it directly to whoever the business rates payer is, but also deliver to local businesses as well. The baselines have been finalised now, so that business plan goes out. 7th of September, the notice of ballot goes out, and then 21st of September, the ballot paper is dispatched. 22nd of September, the ballot starts, closes on the 22nd of October, and on the 23rd of October, the results will be declared, depending obviously on those results. We either end up having to run the business down, or we carry on to the end of March, and then bid 4 starts on the 1st of April. Without getting too complicated around it, the bid works directly in partnership with Western Town Centre Partnership, which existed before bid came along. It's been agreed by the board that if bid doesn't continue, then the Town Centre Partnership will fold at that point as well, so it will cease to exist. If it's a no vote, I could sit here for the next hour and run through it and tell you all the things that, won't happen in the town, but there's just a few of them there. If it's a no vote, there will be no security wardens or radios. There'll be no support for the existing events or facilitation of new ones via bid. No marketing promotion, no organisation to represent the business interest directly, no opportunity to work collaboratively with statutory agencies to secure the best deals for the town. It gives you an idea. That was a quick run through where we are. Obviously, I'm happy to take some questions. I think without wanting to speak out of turn, Councillor Canfield did say at the last meeting that, from North Somerset's point of view, they're not in a position to pick up the services that we currently deliver if we don't get back in. So there's been a lot of talk around that, well, if you don't exist, then obviously the town council or North Somerset will take on those roles. Clearly, there's, considerable income required to be able to do that. So that's the position we're in now. Quick run through, it gives you a basic idea, but like I said, happy to take any questions. Obviously, the purpose of today is to try and secure the 2 votes from the town council that we would like to get.
So yeah, I'll do questions in a second. So the decision this committee, these terms of reference of this committee actually makes a decision on whether we do vote for it or not. Technically, there's a third option. It's not the paper, which is you just don't return the vote. Technically, you abstain. But everyone knows everyone's opinion of abstentions. So ask Darren your questions, because we genuinely need to make that decision today. So any questions for Darren? Councillor Croft-Hawley?
Could you just flick up that previous slide on what happens if it's a no vote? Because that interests me, because if it's a yes vote, well, you carry on. So no wardens, no radios, no support for existing events, no support from the wardens.
It's all from bid. Obviously, the Armed Forces Day, there's a service level agreement that sits with Western Town Council, where I deliver operationally the Armed Forces Day, the Christmas lights switch on. We assist with remembrance, although that's operated in-house, but that support no longer exists.
And no marketing or PR for Western. Well, we don't rely entirely on the
No.
bid to market, you know, we have our own people doing that, don't we? So it's,
Maybe it's a clever slide. It should say, you know, no bid marketing for Weston
Yes.
rather than no marketing.
and there is an opportunity to work collaboratively with the other agencies. The town council still has that ability.
Yes,
It's just that we don't
We
do it
don't.
through the bid if the bid doesn't exist.
correct.
Fine, okay.
So councillor Stanfield, then councillor Crew.
Oh yeah, Darren, you mentioned 21% were dissatisfied with the bid service. What were they dissatisfied about? And is it something that can be rectified?
Yeah, I think so. You know, it's not my role to criticise anything that happened previous to my arrival 2 years ago. I think there had been some fallout with nighttime economy, who are quite a difficult bunch of people at times to work with. They don't necessarily get the same support as the daytime businesses that have got a number of wardens operational. I think also that there's a scenario whereby some of the businesses that maybe sit on the fringe of the area. So if you look at places like the very far end of Waterloo Street, there are a number of estate agents that all pay to bid. They've got nothing stealable. So therefore they don't get targeted by the street community. And therefore they would say, well, I don't know what I'm getting for my money because I never see the street warden. I don't have a need to call them. So sometimes I would suggest probably a lack of understanding that it's more than just street wardens provided, but maybe we're not very good at actually telling them that, you know, and so the events that are put on around the town are done deliberately to draw people in and to create longer dwell time in the town to benefit everybody. But there will be some particular businesses that just don't think they get anything from it. So when they're asked if they want it again, all they really see is a second levy charge on top of their business rates. We've got one particular, I would suggest, very long business. I won't name them, it would be inappropriate, but one business that says, I don't know why I have to continue paying for this, to pay for services that I'm already paying for.
Yeah.
So I think I'm already paying for the police to come out and deal with the street community, your drug addicts, etc. Why am I paying another charge on top of that for your street wardens to do it if I don't see a police officer?
So it's just a general misunderstanding of what you do.
I think some of it's a misunderstanding. Some of it, I would suggest there are some businesses that really don't see, like I said, they don't see street wardens, therefore they don't realise that they're benefiting from what goes on. And there probably are some that don't, and they just do see it as a second charge on top of business rates when times are hard. It's not a, you know, it's not a fits all. But one of the reasons for raising the threshold from 7.5 to 10,000 is to try and ensure that those really small businesses aren't penalised with the second levy. They still get all the services, we will still respond to them, we'll still help, but they don't have to pay. Obviously then there are some at the top, you know, that are significant levy payers that pay a lot of money and use a lot of the services. There's also somewhere in between, you know, a couple of very large shops in the high street that use our services more than any other businesses in the town, and they are nationally no voters. They do not vote yes at all. And that's frustrating because they use all of our service, but we still have to respond to them because ultimately, although they vote no, everybody pays levy if it goes through. So they are paying into it. So they're entitled to a response. They use our services more than anybody else, but they don't support it nationally and vote no. For politicians, we always line.
Yeah, I know what vote no feels like. Councillor Crew.
Just picking up a couple, one that John made, Darren, you're right. Until a couple of years ago, there was a lot. I got involved in the nighttime economy through the police panel, and you're right. It is a problem. But the one positive thing you can tell businesses on the police panel, we in Weston are envied by most of Avon and Somerset area because the working relationship between the bid, the police, the PCSOs, and our community response officers don't happen anywhere else. So that is a big plus which the bid is involved in. So I think that is a big step forward. The other interesting thing is when we were trying to get members within the bid to join Visit Weston, they came back and said, no, we already paid a bid to promote Weston. You know, John is right, it will still happen, but at the moment, a lot of the businesses say, no, that's what part of what we paid a bid for.
Yeah.
And the situation regarding the estate agent is it makes the town safer. So if they actually get involved in selling businesses as well, isn't that a bonus?
Yeah.
Councillor Canford.
And would you mind going back to the opportunities you're looking at introducing? That was it, no, that was it, go, those are the ones you are.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's not. Darren.
Yeah, sorry, it's on this laptop.
So I'm thinking away and nothing's happening there.
I've been trying to be in sync with you.
Ah.
With the presentation.
As someone who runs business and as someone who's been in the high street and paid the bid for many years, not now, but have been, I think some of those things you've got there are really powerful.
Yeah.
So some of those things, and I think that's the only comment I want to make is the fact that I think some of what you put on the consideration, and I think you should work very hard to find some of that through, like the access to the interactive training. Many small businesses don't realise they can get online training, so they don't take it. I mean, we do with hygiene and everything, but if I was in that area and I could pick up that, and I don't know whether it's affordable, but those sorts of things, you can go into businesses, sell the service of the bid. And I think that's a really positive message. And one that you should be telling them that they'll get. So you need to really work on whether you can afford to do that, because that does reduce the cost of businesses.
Yep.
And there is only one other one you haven't got on there, but it's matter, but is the opportunity to work with North Somerset about a business rubbish collection service.
Yes.
Because it's something I'm working on with North Somerset, and it's way too expensive for businesses at the moment. If you've got service in the town, it should be a lot cheaper. But that's a really good slide, and that's much more positive than a lot of stuff I've seen in the last 4 or 5 years, so that's good.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's fair to say, like I said, you know, before my arrival 2 years ago, I can't really comment, and obviously been a rug for a long time. I'd be the first person to say it's not perfect. It hasn't been perfect, you know, but I think there's an opportunity here for another 5 years to make those changes.
It's about that communication, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The communication hasn't, before you turned up, the communication, we won't say who, the communication was nowhere near good enough with the bid. And it's amazing the bid lasted so long without that communication. But you need to prove that it will be different. Whether you're doing it or whether someone comes on behind you, need to prove it's going to be different with that communication, and the business will be. And then the estate agents will feel like they're being brought into something.
Yeah, I was going to say quite a similar thing about this slide, actually. I think we know that the one missing thing in the bid is the nighttime economy, which doesn't seem to be supported. So I did really want to ask you if you think that there is scope for doing more for that, if you know, if the bid is renewed and going forward, will we be able to support nighttime? It'll be better.
I think the honest answer to that is upon my arrival, there was no relationship at all. I have been to the pub watch meetings. I went to the first meeting, which was a very difficult meeting to go to, and they did respond at that point and said they didn't want us to turn up to any further meetings. I've individually met with the chairman to have that conversation, and it was a difficult conversation because they don't really feel they've had anything from us. So the first thing that we did in April this year was put 2 wardens on in the evenings on a Friday and Saturday night, and the purpose of those wardens is to visit the hotels, etc., find out what's going on, what stag groups have we got in, what lads groups have we got in, where's the likely problem areas, and feed that through. So I would like to think that they've started to make a difference. And I think the only way we're really going to get them on board is for them to actually see results. So by doing that, hopefully they will begin to trust us. We will, if we get back into another 5 years, we can start to liaise with them in greater detail. I think with the extra money that will come in from the bid levy rising slightly will allow us to probably, in the old days, Fridays and Saturday nights were the night out in town. Now it's not about nightclubs, it's more around pubs, and it's 7 nights a week. So really, we need to be able to provide a warden or 2 wardens every night of the week. And I think at that point then, if we can start to visit the businesses and they know they're there, I think we'll start to get some confidence back with them. And I think once we do that, I think there's lots we can do for them. You know, that with the training program that we're able to offer them as well, I think we can start to make some changes. But it's a, you know, it's not the straightforward process. It's not going to happen overnight with them.
7 nights a week. Pubs on Monday nights on generally evening.
I think there's the
Not in my
information,
experience.
the information that we get back are those problems. It is when we take nighttime economy, we immediately focus, don't we, on the pubs, you know, clubs we don't necessarily have since COVID, but pubs. But for me, the nighttime economy is around more than that. Our street community become far more problematic at night when they see the daytime wardens go home. And then, you know, as the nights start to draw in now, it's darker, it's easier for them to start to target places. So I think don't necessarily focus purely on pubs being open, but more on the security that we can offer in the evenings to try and encourage people to come back to using our restaurants and not feel intimidated or frightened when they're walking back to the car park.
And of course, the intimidation isn't just from the people we call the street community, that rather catch-all, slightly silly phrase, but it's also increasingly feral children
Used on scooters, yeah,
who
bikes.
are being more problematic than hitherto and don't care two hoots about a bloke in a uniform.
No.
Um,
No, and I, you know, I'd be the first person to say it, you know, our street wardens aren't perfect in any way, shape or form. But believe me, you know, spend a few hours with them on a day out there and see what they go through. And,
sure.
you know, they've got an awful lot to put up with. And the frightening part for me is that, you know, if we don't get back in, they're not there any longer. So there's nobody to provide that, you know. At the moment, the shoplifter used to go into Greg's at 8 o'clock in the morning with a concealed bag and then shove stuff up their jumper. Now they go in with the bag wide open, push it all into the bag in front of the staff and walk out. You know, that's only going to get worse if there is. At the moment, they still have to look after over their shoulder to see the man in the fluorescent jacket keeping an eye on them. When that's gone, nothing's going to. We're not suddenly going to get police officers back on the street because bid's gone. And as Councillor Hannaford said, the community response, it's not going to grow. So once there's nobody there at all, it really does become a free fall.
There's also you've got, of course, the businesses like the late night shops, which are open, which like is part of the nighttime economy.
And how much did you say that Tesco's lose every day?
Tesco's lose £20,000 a week out the front door.
Wow, that's scary, isn't it?
A week.
But they
Absolutely
do have policy,
scary.
not.
Hmm?
They have policy of not interacting, like when it happens, it happens.
Yeah, they just added to your bill.
Yeah.
But they don't
Which
mind
is the safe way to
put
do
up the price of
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
a way
we
that
pay.
never solves the problem.
No, it's the safest way to do it for staff.
I'd pick them
Um,
up.
So as I said earlier, so this committee determines whether this council votes yes or no. Just as a reminder, it is only actually the two now, so it's the museum and here, because the Blake A, although the lease isn't agreed, I'm fairly certain it will determine that the Blake A pays its own NNDR, so it'll be them that makes that judgment.
Just Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt, just for clarification, it's actually this building
Yeah.
and Silica.
And still,
They're the two buildings the town council pay. The museum we don't pay.
oh, because
It's rated at pound,
because
it's under the
it's rated at a
threshold.
pound, yeah.
The Grove House obviously sits with Van, so you pay the two, and just it's worth knowing from that point of view.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the total bill moving forward to the town council is £980.
The Civic is worth more than the museum, eh? That's an interesting outcome that I've just learned.
it's a significant building.
It is yeah, so 900 quid, okay, that's fairly de minimis really, isn't it? But I'm really supportive of it. It's a public meeting, so you're welcome to stay and hear the debate, like, and the vote, there's no issue with that from a procedural perspective. I'm pretty supportive of it. Does someone want to propose a yes?
Yep.
Yeah, Councillor Crawford Hawley will propose a yes. Any seconders?
Yeah.
Councillor Payne, all those in favour? Clearly carried. So the Silica gets one vote and the town here gets another. That's fine. So what will happen based on the minutes there is Sarah will authorise that when it arrives and we'll get that to go. That's all we needed to agree. Yeah, we've agreed which buildings it is. We'll just need to make sure the minutes reflect that it's the Silica, not the museum. That's the only slight difference. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, appreciate that.
It's a public meeting, so you can tell other businesses we voted yes, because people just watch it back on.
That's great. Yeah, if it's in your report, from my point of view, obviously it's a sealed ballot. I don't have the information. Thank you. Appreciate
I
that.
thought of going top my
Right, so what did I?
got my own machine, as it is.
Yeah. So just bring us back into the order. So we're going back to agenda item 5, which, well, there's two bits. We'll do what 5.1 first. So 5.1 is the draft minutes from the grants and governance subcommittee. That's to note them. I'll talk about 5.2 in a minute, which is a draft store, which came out the same meeting. But any questions on the minutes to note for the sub grant?
I'd like to, they seem to be doing a cracking job. Running the governance commission.
You would say that,
Yeah.
wouldn't you? But no, I think they are doing a great job.
Anyone who dishes out money does a cracking job.
Of course, money, you know.
They say they have to, that's
But it's not yours.
I would say I used to be on it 4 years ago. I think it's considerably come further than it was 4 years ago. I think it's a bit slicker now. It's a bit easier to manage. That would be my observation of having been on it for like 2 hours.
Yeah, you've got it right now.
5.2 then, in that case, I can do most of this context because a lot of it's driven from my ward. Community scrap store, North Somerset. So some of you will know some of the stuff around that they've got some challenges. They applied for a grant. It's in the actual same minutes we just looked at, but they applied for 5,000. As you all know, that committee can only award up to 1,000. We probably do need to check that in the future. And what that committee kind of said was, F&GP, can you take a look? We're willing to do 1,000. Are you willing to try and find the other 4? The reason that's happened, to be really clear, is on the planning committee, they have an environment budget, which has £10,000 underspent or unallocated, however we should define it, this year. But because of the timing of the meetings, because we weren't quite sure about the terms of reference, it probably should have gone to planning to make the judgment of spending their own budget, but we sent it here for belts and braces, really, because it wasn't quite clear if this would fall into the environment. So we went to planning last week, Wednesday, and said to planning, look, if F&GP was to agree to spend 4,000 of your 10,000 for the community scratch store, would you support it? And it was unanimously yes. There's a terms of reference issue we need to look at, because I think planning should have made their own decision, but that might have just been my misunderstanding of how it ended up here. I will let Councillor Crewe give any more context, but that's the history behind it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think when we changed rules and regulation, what we're doing, I think we nodded some through. We didn't look at it sensibly. But yeah, you're quite right. I mean, we were happy. First of all, we would like to give them the money at the first meeting, but we only get 1,000. And we did agree at planning. Yes, this is a worthwhile thing. North Somerset have a similar thing which runs to Clevedon. So this is a similar type thing which is going to help many people over a long period of time. And therefore, the £4,000 coming forward, we're happy that planning is there in the budget, but we can't spend it because we haven't got power to spend it. So therefore, it came here, and hopefully the committee will agree the £4,000 can be taken from that budget.
That's a one-off, to be clear. So that's open.
And
The other reason for the limit to £1,000, because the budget's only 12.5 grand anyway, the entire year for that particular grant budget.
Councillor Payne.
Can I just ask, are we doing it this way because there's no money left in the grants budget? Or could we take it out of the grants budget?
Well, I mean, take the F&GP to decide what it wants. Technically, F&GP could, but the reason they didn't was because there's still several more months to go, and we know there's an underspend on the environment budget. That they felt it was slightly safer to do that.
It's related to environment.
Yeah, because it does recycle materials for businesses. It's more logical for environment.
Do we think that we ought to think about increasing that £1,000 limit for the grants?
Well, the thing is that there's two different grants. The small grant budget, which this is from, the reason we keep it up to around that figure is because it spreads it around a number of small organisations. This was an unusual one for 5k to come from it. What we need to look at is whether it should come from a different budget, whether that budget should be increased, and therefore the fund would have to be increased as well, or whether we actually give the powers to, because it relates to the planning environment, whether we give the power to the planning environment to award it.
But the last subgrants committee did say we do need to look at the terms of reference and those things, because this does occasionally crop up, and it's been 1,000 since I've been in council, so that's what, 8 years.
So it's coming from the environment heading in the accounts.
Yes, which is currently sits with planning and environment, but because there's a bit of debate around the greyness of the terms of reference, it was safest to bring it here.
We've had, I think this is going on with it. I can go on.
Would someone have proposed it?
I did.
Oh,
It's coming for the environment budget, I'm happy to say.
Councillor Crewe proposed, Councillor Stanfield second.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
All those in favour? That's clearly carried, so that's covered. And planning know about it, because they were told at the last meeting, so that's fine. Another minutes to receive for noting health and safety meetings held in August. Fairly standard, they come here. Any questions, observations, concerns? No? Okay, so we will jump then to agenda item 7, which is page 35-37. This is a review of the contractor services. So the whistle stop reminder is at full council. You will remember we gave you, there's a warning that we have breached our standing orders for when we were reporting our accounts. And that was in part caused by issues with the contractor. So we kind of said at that meeting, can F&GP dig into this a bit more to understand what's happened? because it wasn't really appropriate to try and navigate that at full council. So in that report you've got in front of you kind of explains the timelines. And I don't know if you want to cover, Helen, what's going to happen going forwards and all that stuff.
Yeah, so the report basically just defines the timelines that actually happens around kind of complete the year-end accounts. We met with the contractor who basically gave us assurance that it wouldn't happen again, and it was based on the fact they were consolidated and being bought out by another accounting services company. We have now got a date in the diary ahead of their timetable release, making sure that we are at the top of that list as far as their timetables and preparation of those accounts is concerned. The assurance is that we will have the right amount of staff looking at our accounts this year end.
Right, okay. Was that just for noting, unless, yeah, so any questions on that? Unless you want to do a re-procurement of an accounting firm in a short space of time? Any questions for that? No. I think we just have to definitely avoid it happening again. So what I would say is if those timescales they've given are slipping, please don't hesitate to put it back on this agenda. Is what I would say, because we've breached it once. We don't really want to breach standing orders again. If we can avoid it. Okay, investment bank overview. I will leave this to you, Helen, because I'm not very good at articulating this stuff. But we've got surplus money we need to save it. We need to choose a bank.
Yeah, bottom line. Yeah, so we're looking to spread our investment portfolio a little bit further because at the moment it's a little bit short based. So in the investment strategy, it does state that we can't actually have any more than 40% of our total available funds in more than one particular provider. So by having another one, which is the Unity Bank, and they are a new player to the market. They do specialise in parish and town council fund investments. So they are a bank. This is just going to be one of those additional accounts where we can actually put that money in to make sure we've got more spread and a more profile and use of return on our accounts and the interest that we can gain. Because we are just literally hitting our 40% when we need the funds out. This will just spread it back a little more. So by opening a new bank account.
Perhaps I can afford.
Have we ever, that's fine, have we ever considered using the platform Flagstone or someone like that, which I know most businesses with cash holding use? Flagstone, all it is a very safe corporate opportunity for you to invest money in lots of different building societies, banks, higher interest rates, protected, because you get the protection of each bank. It's just something worth looking into, and I know that, well, I use fairly big financial advisors in Bristol and they recommend them to their cash holding clients, so.
I'll certainly have a use that as a
Flagstone. Flagstone is actually the platform.
Yeah, then
But it goes straight away to BC and then it's just distributed out into, it could be anything from the Leeds Building Society to this building society, or even overseas building societies and banks, so.
No, I'll certainly have a look at that.
So they all protect, they're all registered and protected by the FS.
Yes. And just from a very practical perspective, obviously, we have our investment strategy. How flexible is it? So let's say we make a decision next March to change the investment strategy and go to something like that. How easy is that to fit?
Not a problem at all, because it is basically based on the percentage that you're actually investing with each provider. So that's where we can get
And
that.
you can choose which you want to do, so you can invest for 1 month, 3 months, 12 months. If you've got long-term investments, you want to get 5% return, which is way more than the banks would do. Put it in for 12 months.
Yeah, so if this policy is flexible enough, then actually the decision today doesn't impact what Mark says there, because it would be clear.
No, it's not something that an extra area to look at, yeah.
I do have some experience with Unity Bank, because obviously I've been in the charity sector. The experience wasn't great, but I understand they've come on leaps and bounds. So my only plea is if we do decide to use them, if we could just get some assurance on signatories and that. I don't want another NatWest.
It's quite good rates anyway, isn't it?
I mean, they have come on leaps and bounds, to be fair. It wasn't 8 years ago that I used them, so I just thought I would say that. So I'll hate myself if I didn't and we had the same machine. Any questions on that before we go to propose that? No, okay, I'm happy to propose that we move that investment amount to Unity Trust. If I can have a second there. Councillor Caniford, all those in favour? Perfect, thank you. I've already just checked that was a full recommendation. Yeah, that's fine, that's good. Excellent. So where are we? Investment bank we've done, bid renewal we've done. So we move forward to agenda item 10, which is the AI policy to be approved. For context, this came to the last one. There were some suggestions about amendments and it's recirculated and came back with some significant changes. So that's the context for those of you who were not here on the last F and GP. So it's pages 50 to 60. Do you want to introduce anything, Helen? Or...
Yeah, as the chair said, it was literally probably the first one that was delivered was a little bit technical. So we've had a look at it and made sure that it's more appropriate to colleagues and the council from a human point of view description. So yeah, it's been completely redrafted from where it was before based on some information and guidance we had from the committee.
Any questions?
Well, was this written by AI?
No, I went through and humanised it. I think.
So it was written by it, was it?
Yeah, I went through and read it as a person.
And it is something a lot. So we got one where I work. We just introduced it because our logic is if you don't have a policy, it's harder to control than have. If you've got a policy, then at least you've got somewhere to start. Because people are using it for all sorts of stuff. And if you don't really say here's the parameters from an employment perspective, you're in a bit of a sticky situation. Any questions, observations,
We
challenges?
certainly use it for making reports twice as long as they need to be.
Yeah, I mean, you can shorten them. I'll tell you one thing it is really good at. In work, we have different people write different pages. A report is very good at having a standard voice. It's excellent at that.
When I say we, I mean local government,
Yeah,
all government. North Somerset even
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah, but if you use Copilot in conjunction, it becomes really
That's-
easy because I walk around the woods listening to my reports on Copilot.
and because I broke my finger, I couldn't type for a couple of days at work. I transcribed what I needed my reports to say to AI, and no one challenged me on it. It looked decent. So
It can be terribly repetitive. though.
it can be repetitive.
You're very right. You need to go through it, change it to your language, not to its language.
Exactly.
And put a couple of spelling mistakes in it.
Yes. He's not lying. I'm doing a leadership course and I submitted some stuff and the bits for AI, they highlighted it being too repetitive, so I put spelling mistakes in it and passed right through.
Will do, because it won't make spelling mistakes.
Um,
It might make Americanisms, but it won't make spelling mistakes.
Anything else from anybody else? Otherwise, I will propose the adoption. I'm happy to propose.
You're not going to know now whether
I'll go forward. Adoption on that. If I can have a seconder, Councillor Crew.
That's a deaf chair.
All those in favour of adopting the AI policy? Yep, perfect. Thank you. This agenda's actually shorter than I was expecting, actually. Oh yeah, sorry, I am mindful the rant at the end. Agenda item 11, which is a digital transformation programme. Now, I could give some context, but I think I would butcher a lot of it, so I might ask officers to do that, and then I will come in about a group of councillors that helped with this. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay. So the document's been drafted on the basis that we need to start looking at our IT structures, our IT hardware, and about bringing all of the bolt-on systems that we've got that are sort of standalone, that aren't talking to each other. Everything needs updating. There's a whole load of work to do around what our data sets look like, where the information is held, what it's held in, and this transformation document basically outlines how we're going to approach that, and within that is how we're going to resource that and the time given to make sure that we actually get to a point where we have systems that staff can use that are compatible, that are forward thinking, and making sure that we've got those programs in place in a timely manner in a recognised timescale.
So the last meeting of this, I think it was, we asked for a group of councillors to support the report. This case was me, Peter, and John S. John CH, 2CH, and just to John CH, I'll mess up now. And I suppose one of the things to add, and I'll let the other group add some stuff in, is if you're a member of the public, it is actually genuinely really hard to engage with this council.
If you're a member, it's hard to engage.
Well, yeah, if you're a member, it's really hard to engage. And
that
this
seems to have been missed, and yeah.
well, that's partly because modern gov's being procured, but it is difficult. You know, if you're in other councils, you'll be able to be at a bin, report it, it'll go through to the right team. It's all very emails and passing paper around desks and texting Kira and saying, can you call into the office because a resident's called? It's slightly mad. So that's kind of one of the things we observed. And then one of the recommendations that the group came up with was there's a system called Abavus, my council, which is used by other councils. It's on the government procurement framework, so it's all legitimate. And that's one of the recommendations in this report is to start to implement that. So the public can engage users report things, but actually it's also slightly more than that. It allows us to do any of those surveys or reporting that we need to. what I was going to say on that. And because it's on the government procurement framework, we as a council are able to lift it and go ahead with it rather than run our own procurement, which you imagine would be a nightmare for water specialist software. So that's one of the recommendations in there. And the other recommendation in that is you've got Modern Gov, you've got Abavus or Annual Policy, but basically contact forms for residents. You've got, what was it, the website, I've said Modern Gov, you've got Microsoft 365, and there's some other softwares we've got, some of them we don't use, well, some of them we do. So there's loads of stuff going on. But they need to be coordinated and linked together. So that's why there's a recommendation to have a digital transformation manager or officer within this budget, but the money for that will be determined by officers based on existing budgets and savings from not having all the software that's required.
Yeah,
I can't remember how much software there was, but we're spending over 200 grand on software from memory.
yeah. So we're currently doing an IT audit with the type of kit that we've currently got. Or it's that will assess it as to what a particular role within the council actually needs it for, not the person. So that we know that actually that role is provided with the right hardware, the right programs, and going forward, we know that we are future-proofing it a little bit more than where we are now. But it's just that transition from where we go, what we've got, to finding out what's not working, to what we need to replace it with, and there's that transition manager role coming into that.
And to be transparent, it's quite likely in my experience and John's experience and Peter's experience, there will be hardware that's not compatible with some basic stuff. So there may be some hardware replacements, but that will just come out of existing budgets. John or Peter?
And Joe, first of all, Joe, being the one person involved in that, would you believe my laptop failed last Wednesday and had to be completely rebuilt? And I had mine 6 months before every other member. So in 6 months' time, be prepared for that to happen. Joe, I think it's quite clear that when we decided on Modern Gov, you're right, members have problems as well. It's not just
No, it is noticed.
public contact, but this is partly moved towards. We do need to look at the efficiency of the council. The more we get into this situation of devolution, the more important, the more things will be taken over, the more things we need to record. Good example, if we look at the cemetery, at the moment, all our records regarding the cemetery are manual. They're not on. If this was digitalised, there is a potential job saving straight there. As we move forward with efficiency saving, we know that as we take on more, that could mean more employees. However, if we look at the efficiency drive at the same time, it could actually incorporate a number of those things, which actually might save us having to take on additional people. Because at the moment, it's there's so many systems in operation. Modern Gov will help, will certainly help members once that is operational. But Ababus does make a lot of sense when we went through it in a lot of detail the other day. There is a big advantage in that. And I think it's something in which we need to do as we move forward devolution.
I agree with that.
You're the IT man in the room.
I think it's what we must do. I was just gobsmacked by the way things are done now, after being told the processes that we go through and the likelihood of mistakes being made. And we know that mistakes are made. But this for the money, this is a no-brainer. This is so I'd cost it against comparable CRM management programs. And this is like a quarter of the price, and it includes all the training. Is that right, Helen? Yeah. The other thing is with we do take on a digital transformation manager from outside. The benefit of that is they're going to challenge the existing way of working if they feel it's wrong, because without it being challenged, nobody here knows if the way they're working at the moment is the most efficient way. They're just sort of muddling through all the time. So I think that's going to be another benefit as well, apart from the cost saving that Peter highlighted. It also provides for remote working. So things like the grounds team don't have to come back at text messages like they can take pictures of what they're working on, what they've repaired, and send it straight back to the system. Everybody knows that it's been done. It is quite a good system.
Cannabis?
So is this all encompassing, or are you going to be respectfully back saying, now we need this package and we need that package, and all of a sudden we find ourselves 4 years down the road and we've now got a different mess with a different set of packages, and we're saying, I mean, I don't know how many times in the years we've been on North Somerset Council they've tried to sort their IT issues out. but we seem to be in the same mess every 5 years, and it seems to again because nothing seems to work through 365. So I just fear that we need to be confident that we're going to go in a direction, make sure we're really confident in that direction, and then commit to it. I mean, and even possibly commit to the fact that types of IT provided to members in a future council rather than all muddling on their own pieces.
I would agree.
Because, you know, I don't mind that. I use 365. If you don't do 365 and you do ModGov, I don't do ModGov on my desktop, and I'm not going to download ModGov. So it'll be it's a bit, you know, it's just muddling. So when people say you've missed something, it's because I haven't found it. And because and it is a little bit difficult, isn't it, when you're relying on another authority's hardware for you to run your council. I mean, two here today, North Somerset laptops being used, and I'm not criticising that because it's a piece of equipment, you might as well use it. It's not really the right way to go if we're trying to portray that. So we should have a, you know, these pads aren't expensive and they should be loaned, ready to go just for our work, and you wouldn't have to send all the stuff out of this.
So we could amend the recommendation to add that, because if I
It
don't,
could be part of it, I think.
I think that's a
I
fair
think
challenge.
Mark is right there. I mean, if you look at, yes, I'm using this one now, these will finish next May. There won't be any more of this brand being used. At the moment, we've only got one spare, but that's a problem. But yes, I think the thing that frustrates me is members not having the right kit to criticise the information they get from the council, but they don't use the kit, they don't come to the meeting with the kit, and therefore I think we should be in a situation where every member should have the kit supplied by us as a town council, and therefore have it secure and have a piece of kit so everybody's got it. So nobody can say, oh, I didn't know about the meeting, oh sorry, I was late, I missed the meeting, as we hear so often.
So I'm going to bring Faye, can I bring Faye in and then John, is that all right?
It was only to say from a practical point of view, like an operational point of view, we've spoken to and actually physically been to other councils, parish and town councils that are quite large, that are in that, well, Bridgewater, for example, that are in the devolution, you know, they've got, and from a practical point, this system just like as soon as we saw it, I mean, we've had these people here quite a few times and we've really grilled them so many times. But yeah, it looks like a one-stop shop.
So you're confident with that?
Yeah, when we ask, honestly, like I say to the other parish and town councils, is it good? And they say, yes, it's good. It's a good piece of kit.
Yeah, I looked at some of the case studies as well. Chippenham was one I concentrated on first of all, and they're over the moon with it, and all the modules are included, so there won't be any more. There won't be any add-ons. Whatever we need is already included. They've got over 60 councils on at the moment. They're just taking Hornsey. I spoke to one of their technical guys on the phone and asked them a couple of questions that I wanted clarifying. They're remote working, for instance, flexible working. And that's all built into the system, so it is quite robust.
We have tried to challenge it, council, because when they first arrived on my desk, I'm like, because obviously I've done a lot of tickets since advice, and I can tell you somebody's cost millions, so I'm like, where's the hidden money? And it's because they're going for scale of councils, that's how they're doing it.
And the two guys that come and sit and do it, like go through the whole process, they own the company.
Okay.
So you don't just get a salesperson, we're dealing with the guys.
So they can't deal with the things like ModGov will deal with it, posting papers to members and stuff.
That's what we
No, so what we're trying to do is got up to us as our sort of open portal and we're working with it
Council
offline,
business,
especially
yeah.
business. We've then got modern gov, which is going to sit, and what we're looking at the moment is actually making sure we've got the same platform they can work off. So currently both of them can actually work through Citrix, which is what we've currently got. So what we've got to just do is make sure that technical side of it is in a position where we're not going to have any downtime.
That should be
It's an independent server, so we can make sure it's all running on a compatible
Excellent.
platform. John?
Just one small point, it's probably to do with my great age. But I look around and I see actually most of us have got printed copies of this meeting, and I know there are people who are so digitally aware that everything they have is contained on something that size.
Yeah, right.
But a lot of us like to sit down
anymore.
with the paperwork and scribble notes, because I find that's the only way I can think. When I have something coming through that machine, it goes in and out. It doesn't. But if I've got a piece of paper that I'm actually reading and scribbling on, I make a much greater mental, I have a much greater mental capacity for retaining that information than I do from any of these things.
And that will still exist. I think the best way to think about it is you'll then have people like me who use the Abacus, you know, as on important stuff. So you're not going to need to bother about me. That'll go where it needs to go. So more time can be spent on those who need greater support. That is a side and the effect of it.
I think as well with convolution, I do say to the staff and when we have conversations, do not underestimate the amount of potential complaints, inquiries and whatever that we will start getting with more and more assets being taken over. So you have to have a really robust reporting system and a really good back office system to be able to cope with how we're going to respond to the public. We have that on a very, very low level at the moment, but that is going to really grow, I think.
So an example that we know that Abacus does is freedom of information. It supports freedom of information. That last year, many of you know, was a huge cost to this council of office at time. So that'll at least help some of that. So shall I tell you what the recommendations are? Because there's a fair few, just so everyone's really clear. So I'll ignore anything that's a note. I'll tell you the things that need to be improved. So the approvals are that we support the digital transformation strategic business case, which is all those things we've just mentioned. It includes approving the procurement of Abacus, my council services. It's already on the government's portal procurement list, so we're legally allowed to do that. And it's authorised the chief exec to complete that procurement with Abacus. And the other one is agrees that we undertake a review of our existing licenses, applications, and hardware, of which we'll add councillors' hardware to that, because I think that's a reasonable request. And we agree a transformation manager to support all of this, but personnel committee will need to agree the job description and what the grading is, with that to be paid for from existing budget or savings, depending which way you look at it. So that's the summary of what's in there, and as officers tell me I completely butchered that.
No, that's nicely.
So I have done my prep before I come. So if I propose that, then at least we can keep together off. So I'm happy to propose that if I can have a second. Yeah, Councillor Crew. Any disagreement, any amendments? All those in favour? Cheers, thank you, that's carried. Right. So I'm just gonna let officers write that down, so that you know we've got a round bit of it. I knew it was good. About £1 for every dad joke, I'll be a rich man.
Yeah, you would. You've had 3 tonight.
Because I have, yeah. Agenda item 12. Which is the last one we've got on the list. That is 32 Waterloo Street ramp. I'm going to try and do a very brief summary because there's various papers from everywhere, just to try and bring this all into at least the same place. So this originally came back from full council at the last full council, where F&GP were asked to look at it again. So that is today. You've got a couple of papers. You've got one that kind of gives you a bit of a summary of what's happened, what's been looked at, feedback and observations from people with disabilities who have had challenges. And then one that came Friday was a meeting with Weston, which in a nutshell is a disability access group. And there was some summary of what was discussed there. So you've had that in a couple of places.
Have we got that somewhere?
It's on here, but I can tell you the summary because I wrote the notes. Yeah, if you want some, I can tell you the summary. Let me get my notes. So the summary of that Weston group was effectively, for them, the most equitable thing for people with disabilities was a ramp at the front. Then it would have been the back with significant changes. It was not a temporary ramp that you put together. They said that's not particularly equitable. It's a nightmare to deal with, and not all people with disabilities will have confidence in using it. That's relevant to the paper because that's also in the paper. And if you were to do the back, there would need to be things like improvements to intercom because they can't reach it. They actually can't. If you're blind, you can't see the buttons to press. There was improvements to signing, improvement to training. So that was kind of their feedback. They did come here for transparency, and unfortunately, the day they come, they couldn't get into the back because it was blocked, and that is because we technically don't have rights over the back. So there were cars blocked then. So that's not ideal.
I mentioned this to Sarah, and she said we do have rights over the back because there's a fire exit. She spoke about putting out an orange grid, yellow grid rather, just to remind
But there's still easement
People with the
access.
vans at the side here, not parking.
To people down there. The challenge would be if someone's blocking it, what you're gonna do. But fundamentally, they're basically, for them, they're like, we can understand your predicament. We would prefer a ramp up the front. That is the most independent and dignified way for us to enter a council building. We don't want to be trudged all the way out the back. But if you do out the back, there's some fundamental problems that need to be solved. But whatever you do not do a temporary ramp. Is basically their view. Is that a fair summary of that meeting? I'm trying to be non-biased, because most of you know my view, but that feels
Based
like,
on the council meeting, it's out the back then, isn't it?
so that feels like that. The rest of the stuff's in the papers.
What's the cost of doing the back? We don't know, would
No, not from them, no, because that meeting is on as a access group, so we don't know that.
what kind of things we can do it?
What was the other thing I was gonna say? When does planning expire? Is it January? When's our,
Yeah, I think we said,
the other thing to be aware of, planning expires in January. They're the key bits of information I think you need to know. I have a view, but I'm gonna wait till other people speak. Does officers want to add anything else? Because this has gone forwards and back, but fundamentally, we need to make a decision either way, because that planning expires in January. You're either extending it, you're not doing it, you're doing something else. Basically the options, right? John?
Right, it's quite a lot to,
There's a lot in there, yeah.
in an ideal world, the building would be accessible front and rear, regardless of ability or disability. But we're not in that ideal world. We're in an old building, we're not building from new. The word proportionate, I think, comes into play, whether the expenditure is proportionate to the need or not. Now, the expenditure on this, I reckon, is over £100,000. Because you're talking of 81,597 plus the extra 10,000 for the professional consultation, plus VAT, which is 18,319.40. The whole thing, if my maths is right, comes to 109,960.40 pence for a ramp.
So the VAT, we can actually claim back.
So we can claim back 18,000. So 109,000 minus 18,000 is still substantial. I walked this morning along the boulevard and Waterloo Street on both sides to count the number of properties which do not have access which is level with the footpath. 38 premises, of which it includes banks, building societies, estate agents, hairdressers, shops, solicitors, firm, accountants, and cafes. So are we, as a public body, being expected by some people to do more than businesses are?
There is
And the answer is yes. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, John.
I'm sufficiently aware of the law. I know that we, but what the Equality Act does not impose on us is an absolute requirement. It uses the word proportionate. It uses the word, the other words it uses. So, the important thing, of course, is that we have to be anticipatory and not responsive. So we can't get away with it by just saying, well, only 2 people have complained, therefore why bother with it? We have to anticipate what the public response might be at some stage in the future. But I have to say, thus far, the number of people who have raised serious issues is very few and far between. I noticed the officer responses anonymised, just a bit vague, but is it worth spending that amount of money on something where there is not that amount of complaining? But I know that's not an issue which we are not allowed.
The court's not
I'm
interested in
quite
that.
aware of that. But the other point I'm sorry to say is that I think in terms of design, it is truly inappropriate for this building. And that is a separate issue altogether. I know North Somerset have now granted permission, but I find it incompatible with this building. Nothing is perfect, nothing ever will be perfect in terms of using an old building for public access. But again, I come back to, are we being proportionate in the expectation? The law says what reasonable adjustment is actually required and what is the proportionate and effective means of achieving it while conserving the listed building and exercising proper stewardship of public funds. So it is incumbent upon us to take all of those issues into account.
So we're gonna do Canford, Mead and.
I'm certainly not happy with the prospect of approving it.
So through this process, officers have been keen on providing this, but then I come to every single evening meeting in this building and the front is shut. So we're providing access for the public to get to a meeting, and then we don't even open the doors when we do have a meeting. We tell everyone to come around the back. So I'm a little puzzled why this is. So what's the plan for the evenings? Are we going to now start opening the front if we have a ramp? I somehow don't think so. So we still have the same problem. So if one wants a ramp, one has to then completely reconsider the operating model of what we're doing. As like I said, if someone was disabled out the front today, wouldn't get in there, think, oh, well, there's no access to me, and they would have gone. So we have an issue already in that sense, and I have mentioned it before, I think, in the past.
So Weston kind of identified that by saying it's standard training.
Yeah, well, it's not that, we need to open the doors. So that's a good start, that's not a training issue. That's a resource issue, or we don't want to leave the front open when people are just wandering in and out and we're in a meeting. So I'm just not sure whether we've sorted this out, but again, I hear what John says. I think this is a ridiculous amount of money for that change, moderate change. And I don't think this is going to solve our problems if we're still not going to make the front of the building accessible for all our evening meetings.
So I'll quickly come in and Jill, so I'm kind of in the other spaces of what we're doing. I think one of the challenges with this is we bought an inaccessible building, right? That's kind of the fact. We bought an inaccessible building for that, and we've spent almost £1 million on this building, give or take. It's about 800 grand to a million, isn't it? And what kind of message does it send if we're not willing to spend 8 to 10% of that on improving the access? I take Mark's point. I think Mark is right. There are cultural stuff we need to deal with, and we've got buzzers that people can't press if they're blind because there's no contrast to them. So the whatever happens today, there are stuff we need to do. But for me, the thing that goes through my mind is this lack of dignity a disabled person will have trying to get access here if we're then pushing them all the way down the road. There's a car parked out the back that we can't move, which is what happened with the West Hill individuals, which wasn't a great look. We do have public sector equality duty. John is absolutely right on that, which is why those other buildings shouldn't sway you because they're irrelevant, they're not council. I get the money's a lot. I don't dispute that. I think the challenge is if we go back and say, can we redesign something with different materials, you're then resubmitting planning and then doing experts again, will that cost therefore be greater cumulatively than what we're talking about now? That's kind of where I'm at, because if we re-engineer it, which you can do, it's modification to the existing planning applications, so you have to bear in mind those costs. So for me, this is one of these things where I'm kind of prepared to bite the bullet and take the punches. Because for me, us as councillors spending £1 million on a building and not 8% of it on people who are disabled is not something I can really countenance. But that's where I'm at. But that doesn't mean people's concerns are valid because it's a lot of cost. Let's not pretend it's not. Jill.
Okay, well, that's a more than reasonable point that you're making, Karen, and I think everyone else has. Mine's such a simple question. How many people have we actually had come in through the front and spoken to whoever on reception? How many actual people have come in to say they are disabled or sent somebody in to ask for them? How many people have we had to request to come into the building who are disabled?
So
Since we opened, obviously.
Well, we don't know, but the Westall group that came, I want to say it was
Yeah,
five.
I heard that.
There's five of them, I think. But the general question of how many disabled people try and use our service is one of those unknowable questions. All I can tell you is Weston-super-Mare has a higher statistical number of disabled people compared to national average. That's all I can tell you. That doesn't mean how many of those access cancer
I
services.
just wondered, you know, because I would have thought that was something that Julie or whomever else is out there would have actually mentioned that, you know, oh God, we have somebody else come in today
Unless you do know.
that we're trying to get through the front. It's just.
I'll let Faye answer. I don't think Faye knows the number.
I
But
think, yeah, no, we haven't got a number, but I think the overriding message that came from Russell when they came was the fact that there should be access for them to be able to come into the building whenever they.
I'm not disputing, you know, the where's the, you know, the where's the
Yeah.
workforce and that we, you know, for all the reasons that Kieran's just said, we should do it. I only wanted to know the factual information of how many people have actually come in to say, how do I get into this building?
and the answer is we don't know. It's not reported. It's the general.
I think the problem with asking that question is that we don't know, you can't know how many people don't actually come in the building because they can't, well, they feel they can't, so be hundreds or thousands, you know, it's just no way of knowing, is there? Is because they don't indicate with us because they can't. I'm kind of with you on this, Kieran. I think that we do have to do what we can to help people access the building. And with dignity as well, you know, I think sending them round the back is not good enough, particularly in the winter when going down Kingsway is difficult, it's hard, it's, you know, it feels insecure. And I don't think that's, you know, that's acceptable in the modern world, really.
I can't quite see why someone who's severely disabled wants to come in here and discuss with officers anyway. What is it exactly that we're, apart from coming to a meeting, a public meeting, there's no other reason I can think of where you could pick up a phone or even contact a local councillor to sort out any issues they got, but I just struggle to get right in my own mind what it is they need to come into the building for, except for a public meeting, a solicitation.
Community groups that hire here and that, and we've also will sometimes you'll also get people off public. So on occasion stand reception, not for reception duties. You'll occasionally get people coming in. We've had people, particularly when they've had a loved one pass away and they need to sort out all the stuff at the funeral. I forgot where to get buried. Milton Road Cemetery. They've often been in that room up there and around the back. So it's not just council meetings. There are other stuff that goes on. Community groups do hire this. So that is one thing to bear in mind. And then the general public that come in or have a pre-booked appointment, which is usually in the world of Milton Road Cemetery. It's usually that kind of stuff. Beyond that, I don't know if there's pre-booked appointments for other things. Council Crew.
Yeah, I mean, we need to look at, there's a number of things here. For example, if we move towards a system where we were talking about systems earlier on, where people will, if they wish, be able to book a slot regarding talking about graves online. They won't need to come in the building. There are people which obviously will always want to come in the building, but not necessarily for the right reasons. If we look sensibly, those people that come to the front of the building because they don't know any different, that's our fault. If we improve the back of the building and make that the entrance, two entrances in, it's not the back entrance, it's another entrance in, and everybody is aware that's the entrance you come to, then that overcomes the problem. At the moment, if somebody arrives at the front and can't get in because they're disabled, that gives us a problem. We debated this, you know, long before the building was open, and we were going through and we were looking at all different ramps. And in the end, the number of people that may want to use it, as the number of people that might object to the fact that they can't get in the building, two different things. I think it's a question that if we actually advertise quite well, that if you want to come to the building and you have a disability, there's two entrances to the building. Not the back, not the front, two entrances to the building.
So there's no recommendation in the report because it was up for debate. So I'm just going to make a recommendation and we'll see where it lands. I think that's the best thing to do. And my recommendation is to carry on with the proposed structure that was submitted for planning and accept that there will be an overspend of circa It'll be 20 grand rather than 10, isn't it, trying to do the maths? Yeah, 20,000 rather than 10. I'm happy to propose that, we'll see how the vote lands, but I think whatever happens to that vote, I would say we probably do need to do some of the stuff Wessel said about the back, but we'll come back to that depending how this vote goes. So that's what I'm proposing, we go ahead as planned, accepting an overspend, if I can have a second there for that. Robert, so we'll quickly put that to a vote and then we'll navigate whatever happens there. All those in favour of that proposal? That's, I think it's going to fail, but all those against? Yeah, okay. So just want to propose what's next. So fundamentally, you're left with do nothing. You're left with the temporary ramp, which Wessel said definitely don't do. And if you do, yes, if you do nothing, yeah, sorry, there's three options, isn't there? Do nothing, do a temporary ramp, or do nothing plus some of the changes Wessel suggested. Sorry, there is a third. So those are your
Improve
three.
access, improve signage,
Buzzers.
improve buzzers, which will
What else?
probably come to, what, £5,000-10,000?
And then we quickly roll. I didn't write all of the stuff down, but it was that stuff training for
We have
staff.
the CTV fund as well, if someone comes and they're disabled and Julie can see that someone out the front there.
Yeah, it was that kind of stuff. It was nothing that's going to bankrupt the council
No.
from what I read.
But it will,
So all of the things that Wesley proposed.
Yeah. Yes, because what we're saying is, so when we met with Westall, they basically said, here's our hierarchy, right? That's basically what they said, right? And you currently discounted their top priority. And then they kind of said, these are stuff you need to do at the back. Please don't do the temporary rank because it's a pain to get it all out. It's really embarrassing to be stood there as someone's pulling out a temporary ramp. There's nothing worse than being disabled and waiting for someone to do all of these things. That's basically what they were saying, right? So yes, so unless officers tell me otherwise, it was all very tangible.
It was all very practical.
that's fine. That's what Peter, I think that's pretty much what Peter's just recommended, really.
Yeah.
Making it the main entrance.
Look, there should be, I think the words were that we do the improvements at the back, but it should also be considered as another entrance,
Yeah.
not just the back
The back
entrance.
entrance.
Let's not call it, because we all come in the back entrance, if you're gonna call it that, it's not really, is it? It's a meeting entrance, it's a meeting room entrance. That's what it is.
It was simple things like at the front, the buzzer needs to be like a standalone. They can't, people can't reach it. The actual disabled sign that's on there, which is historic from the Mercury building, is insulting to them because it's actually put on the wrong way. So it's like simple things like that would,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
again, it's down to communication. I mean, it's like one of the comments from members of the staff. They had to direct someone to the rear of the building because of the evening meeting. Now, that's part of an organisation, so why didn't the organisation make sure that person was aware that's where they had to go?
The meeting entrance.
Shall I
might
try?
say the rear of the building.
Shall I try and get a recommendation, which I'm not going to support, but at least gets you to vote on it. I think what we're saying here is we're taking no further action with the planning application or the doing it,
Yeah.
the ramp. But we will implement the recommendations from West Hill as appropriate. That's what I think we are saying.
Sorry, we're going to,
Oh, so that disability access group who suggested the
Yeah.
improvements need to be made at the back. Recommend it
I'm
goes.
just thinking, you use the words as appropriate.
Well, only because I can't remember the full details of the report.
But I would add to that is also Peter's suggestion that we stop calling it the rear entrance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And we decide on what we're gonna call it. And therefore it doesn't have a hierarchy over the entrance in the building.
Yes, whatever that road's called, it'd be that road.
Well, it can just be the meeting entrance, meeting room entrance, something like that.
Civic entrance.
civic entrance, whichever, yeah.
I mean, how many of us naturally come in through that door as opposed to that door? I know I do.
most of us.
It messes up your system because we haven't signed in, because we've come in through the wrong door, but.
So just checking with officers, so if the recommendation was, we don't move forward further with implementing the planning application. We adopt West Hill's suggestions and recommendations.
Yeah.
And we change how we refer to the back entrance. Refer to the entrance. Does that work from an officer viewpoint? That's clear enough for the minutes?
That's the Palmer Row entrance and this is the Waterloo Street.
And put
entrance.
recommendations back to this committee once it's worked out. And the costings, yeah.
Okay, with costings, yeah, so.
With the recommendations that they made, actually, that entrance will look more like an entrance.
Great.
So,
Yeah.
we, you know, it will look more.
Let's make it look nicer.
Which is
Yeah.
fair
Make it
enough.
look nicer.
Yeah.
Put some investors out there.
Oh, that's done.
So does that all make sense? Because that's going to need a proposer and a seconder.
Yeah.
Does someone wish to propose that? Councillor Crew, does someone wish to second that? Councillor Don Crawley, sorry, Jill, I can see you.
Sorry.
All those in favour of that? That's clearly carried. So that's fine. So that's all clear for the minutes then, yeah, cool. That I believe, unless I've missed an agenda item, is everything. So thank you all for coming, because we don't normally hold this one, that was just not on the agenda to do, so thank you. Yeah, this is the August hold meeting in case it's still over.
So we're gonna